of 101 FM.
On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand.
Good morning, and this is The Rock. I'm your host, Steve Blair, and what a day. It is a beautiful day. If you're ever out in Herro, like where I am right now, looking out over the Blue Mountain, looking down at the Herro Beach and the beautiful harbor that we have here in Kingston, all you can say is, wow, God is great, awesome, mighty, and wonderful. This is The Rock, and this is the only live talk show of its kind in Jamaica. On The Rock, we discuss all sides of a topical issue that has the church and its congregants and society as a whole thinking about the truth found in the Bible, causing believers and unbelievers to consider or reconsider the things they've heard, studied, believed, or read, causing churches to open or restart discussions. And of course, these discussions are very often glossed over. Well, we are real here, and sometimes we even rock the boat. But that is what the show is all about. At the end of the day, we use the Bible and constantly ask the question, what does the Bible say? A very special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And of course, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Jamaica's #1 gospel station, Love 101 FM. This is your show, The Rock. So today on The Rock, we're discussing a centuries-old problem, one that I can identify in the scriptures as far back as Adam and Eve. Dysfunctional families. What does the Bible say about it? But before all of that, here is what Steve has to say about the issues that are always on my mind. It's called the Steve Rant and Rave. Well, I want to talk about what I saw. First, I met a wonderful lady at Hilo in Manor Park yesterday. Her name is Fiona, and she just told me how she loves this show. Fiona, if you're listening, you and your father and all those around you, welcome to the show and have a wonderful day. Do have some things to talk about, though. A lot of things in the news that really has me going crazy. Buggering little girls and boys. Not just one incident, but several incidents taking place across Jamaica. And I want to say, sadly, we've only heard about 2, but there's several more than likely taking place, because it just seems to me we're going crazy. We've lost our mind. Something is wrong with Jamaica. I don't know. I can't figure it out. Is it a centuries-old problem that we're not willing to change? This can't be. This is just absurd, ludicrous. Big men taking on a little 14-year-old girl or a little boy just does not belong in the scope of things where we are. We've got to make a change. We've got to do something about where we are as a country, because that's just not right. How do we do this? Take it in hand. We've got to take a stand. Well, I want to say that all that's taking place right now, all of these situations and all the murders, it's really sad. We hear the talk about um, the MP also taking on the church and saying that the church is hypocritical because we're not willing to talk about rape and talk about other things, but we're talking about abortion. Now, I want to say that that's just not real and that's just not true. At the end of the day, what we see taking place is that the the church is making a stand. The church has taken a stand against rape. The church talks out about rape. But for someone to open their mouth and say that we don't care and we're hypocritical, that is just so far from the truth. But I should though encourage our leaders to take that stand publicly, not just on your pulpit, to get us writing the paper, to have us having a strategic talk amongst ourselves, so that when things happen, we're not seemingly absent. Yes, we're addressing it in church. A lot of people don't want to take the vaccine is one thing, and I'm standing in church and say, well, I've taken my first jab, and I'm going to take my next jab next month. Everyone's saying they don't want to take the vaccine. Everyone's talking about all these things. So, pastors, the responsibility is ours to take that stand, not just in our pulpit, but to let those around us know that we are not supportive in no way, shape, or form, especially with all the incidences in the churches over the last several years of situations with boys and girls, etc., etc., etc. We will speak out, and I'm speaking out now. All forms of this kind of behavior, all forms of rape is wrong. And now that I've said that, abortion is wrong, homosexuality is wrong, and we're still going to take that stance. We will not be afraid to continue the fight and to speak out against the things that are taking place in our country. So, Madam MP, we love you, and we thank you for your years of service to Jamaica as an athlete, but we're still going to take that stand and say that we're speaking out against abortion. What should the church do? I believe we must make our voice heard on all the issues, but not just that. I got one more solution. Yes, my rant and rave always has a solution. And my solution also is that, Madam MP, we've been involved in counseling parents in this kind of situation that we've seen here, counseling those who have been murdered, and we want to also offer counseling to those, and we are offering counseling to those who are being raped. We are involved, and we're not hypocritical. We are indeed the church. We're not a political party, so this is not a political fight. We love you. The rant and rave of Steve Blair, I tell you. Continuing today, well, can you tell somebody somewhere that you love them? Can you tell somebody somewhere that who has done you something wrong, that you still care about them? I tell you, that is what's going to make the difference. Because this is how I'm going to wrap up today. I'm going to say the problem in Jamaica continues to be the lack of love, the lack of getting past the hate, the lack of forgiveness, the lack of having conflict resolution. So let's solve the problem today. Tell somebody that you've not told in a long time. Tell somebody who's hurt you. Get on that phone today and do what Pastor Steve says. Tell them I love you. That's my rant and rave. I'll be back in about 3 minutes with my very special guest as we look at the big topics today. That topic, dysfunctional families. It's a big word with a simple meaning, not operating normally or properly. And when used to describe families, it just means that the family is not operating normally or properly. But that's a big, big deal. Because when the family is dysfunctional, so is the community, so is the nation, the country, and the world. How did this dysfunction come about, and what's the result? What happens with Isaac and Joseph and King David and maybe even Jesus' family? What do they all have in common? Dysfunction, maybe? That is our topic on The Rock this morning. We're going to be open and honest today, and we want you to be also to post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live, The Rock Broadcast, or send us a WhatsApp message or voice note at 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Rock. Voice notes must be no more than 30 seconds. We'll share them throughout the program and prepare to call in and be a part of the discussion sometime about 11 o'clock. I'm Steve Blair. This is The Rock, and we'll be right back.
Jamaicans, our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have been displaced by recent volcanic eruptions and need our help. The Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development has set up a relief fund to supplement the logistic support being offered by the Jamaican government. Play your part by donating to Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management ODPEM account number 212-387-304 at National Commercial Bank, Oxford Place Branch. That's account number 212-387-304. Account name ODPEM. We are one Caribbean. Let's all lend a helping hand. A message from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development.
The world is full of job opportunities locally and overseas. Let us bring them to you. Register now at Distinction College located at 2600 Park Road, Kingston, 6 Nugent Street, Spanish Town, and Ocho Rios. In 2 to 3 months, earn local and international certificates in housekeeping, food and beverage, food preparation, receptionist, and customer service. Qualified to work in hotels, cruise ships, restaurants, and businesses worldwide. No subjects required, no age limits, no entrance test. Day, evening, and Saturday classes begin very soon at low school fees. Easy and flexible payment plans. Call us 356-4167.
Hey, Campusite, do you have a favorite teacher? Oh yeah, we know. And we want you to help us celebrate the profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. Teaching! So connect with us this Tuesday, May 4 at 5:30 p.m. during Campus Connection for our Pre-Teachers Day celebration, where you can simply send us a voice note of 30 seconds or less via our WhatsApp line with your Teacher's Day greeting. Also, stay tuned for education news, campus tune, and our new testimonial feature dubbed I Chose Christ, You Should Too. That's Campus Connection. This Tuesday, May 4, the Pre-Teachers Day celebration. And you get to be a part of it by simply sending a 30-second shout out to your favorite teacher to 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. Campus Connection happens this and every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. with Reverend Stevenson Samuels and Floyd Wilson, right here on Love 101, the family station.
I want a one campus. We are carrying I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling blessed.
This Testimony Tuesday, May 4, Inside Alive 1 to 5. Join us for another show packed with good music and inspirational stories. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock. At 2:15 Inside the Evidence, we share with you a powerful conversion testimony of Luke Horn. Then at 3 p.m., we return behind the pulpit of Pastor Sheldon Evans of the Evangelism Family Life Ministries from New York. And he's going to share part 2 of his transformational story. All this and more will come alive on the family station Love 101.
Come on now, wave. Everybody wave. Get something away. Come on now, move.
Listen for the Morning Watch Wednesday, May 5 at 7 a.m. with host Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint in the first watch. The crisis in India, concerns and considerations. And in the second watch, U.S. Catholic bishops, President Biden and the forbidding of communion. That's the Morning Watch, Wednesday, May 5 at 7 a.m. with host Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint, right here on Love 101, the family station. Hey, campus side, do you have a favorite teacher? Oh yeah, we know. And we want you to help us celebrate the profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. Teaching! So connect with us this Tuesday, May 4 at 5:30 p.m. during Campus Connection for our pre-Teachers Day celebration, where you can simply send us a voice note of 30 seconds or less via our WhatsApp line with your Teachers Day greeting. Also, stay tuned for education news, campus tune, and our new testimonial feature dubbed I Chose Christ, You Should Too. That's Campus Connection. This Tuesday, May 4, the Pre-Teachers Day celebration. And you get to be a part of it by simply sending a 30-second shout out to your favorite teacher to 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. Campus Connection happens this and every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. with Reverend Stevenson Samuels and Fred Wilson, right here on Love 101, the family station.
I want a one campus. We are carry the Lord from campus. Come on, tell me what I want. Campus connection, tell me what I want. Campus connection.
Welcome back to The Rock. I'm Pastor Steve Blair, your host, and you're tuned in to this show with a very special guest today and a very special topic. Today's topic, dysfunctional families. Is there any family that has no form of dysfunction? Well, is dysfunction in families a must? Can it be avoided? What has been the effect? How can we make it better? Well, those are the things we look at today. Post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live, The Rock Broadcast, or send us a WhatsApp message or voice note at 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Rock. Voice note should be no more than 30 to 45 seconds, and turn your radio down so that we don't hear ourselves in the background. This morning, Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper will be our guest. He is the president of the Jamaica Theological Seminary. His academic experience includes lectureship and tutorship at the Jamaica Theological Seminary, United Theological College, International University of the Caribbean, and CGST. He has presented significant academic papers at the University of Syracuse, the University of Princeton, and the University of Exeter, which is over a period of 31 years and has included pastoring in 3 churches. Dr. Roper has been or had been a broadcaster with more than 30 years experience and a newspaper columnist for more than 15 years. So, Sir Garnet Roper, a very interesting topic for us today.
Okay.
One that should really impact Jamaica. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Always happy to have you. Now that we have you on the screen, talk to us about this topic. What do you say about dysfunctional families, or what is a dysfunctional family? And
Right. So I would want to begin with perhaps the most topical of all the issues recently, which is the buggering of children in St. Anne. And the reports are that a 13-year-old girl was sent to walk from her mother's house to her grandmother's house because her mother had to go to work, so she was going to be kept by her grandmother. And when she got there, her grandmother was not there. So she took a shortcut to a shop and was buggered on the way by one man and joined by 4 others. And then there is another story of a similar thing happening to a 5-year-old boy. Now, people's realities are people's realities. People just have it difficult to cope with all of their things. And as it seems in many of these families, the man is absent. So it's a one-parent thing. But, it's very difficult for some of us to understand circumstances in which a 5-year-old boy or a 13-year-old girl will have to navigate so much on their own. These are children, you know. And in the case of the latter, baby, not an adolescent. So when we talk about dysfunction, we are talking about families not being able to perform the way families are supposed to and do not have the usual protection, you know, in face of economic and social and other elements. Now, I don't want to pretend that that is the problem in this particular instance that I mentioned, because I think the real underlying problem is the collapse of the moral infrastructure in the country, where, you know, it's almost like we have become wild animals in the kind of behavior that you are seeing on video or that are being publicized through newspapers. You know, there is no moral inhibition, restraint, or direction, or perhaps moral purpose. And so people are behaving the way they are behaving. And there are two sets of issues that are paramount. One of them is historical, because the family has never been given priority in terms of how we make our economic or social arrangements in this country, going all the way back to the original sin of slavery. Right? Slavery was anti-family or anti-black family. Right? They were not encouraged to be public and affectionate, and every opportunity was taken to prevent the family unit from surviving. But so that's one. But the second set of problems have to do with the economic circumstances. So one is historical and the other is economic. You know, where people are forced to live in condition without the means of their subsistence, and that with everything working against them. So one of our primary employers of labor is security guard industry, the private security guard industry. That's an anti-family enterprise, you know. Not just the work hours required, but also the emoluments that are paid, the benefits that are derived, the fact that they don't get their statutory deductions paid over. And after a career in that industry, they can't retire, they can't live beyond the day they work. So I think it's an anti-family establishment. And the security guard trade is not alone. Too many, if you drive a taxi, your situation is similar. You know, too many of the things that are afforded and available to the typical Jamaican family as the economic means of their subsistence are of such that they cannot support a family unit. So the dysfunction. Yes.
Do you think that people are aware of the dysfunctional things that are taking place in our homes and our families and our lives?
I know that people are deeply ambitious, and when they make choices for their economic survival or the impression of economic prosperity. And they believe their children will understand. Right? So they try to deal with the bigger stones, the money problem, but they don't pay attention as much to the matter of the protection of their children. Perhaps they can't afford to, but it is not primary. Some of it really ought to be done by the state, meaning the state ought to make provision for the protection of children up to age 14. You know, by various means, some institutional, some financial, some legislative.
Yes. Well, at the end of the day, our society on a whole is being impacted by the decisions that are being made. Mothers keeping fathers away, companies keeping parents away from the home with the work schedules. And it's my belief as we look at Scripture today and look at how some decisions made in Scripture impacted nations, that people need to be aware of what we're doing,
Yeah.
how the decisions we make will impact our children 10, 15 years later.
Well, I tell you a story. It's many years ago. This woman, she had 5 children. She was a dressmaker, and eventually she got, a visitor's visa, and then she went to New York and, stayed there while her 5 children, it was 2 girls and 3 boys, lived in Eastern Kingston. And, while she was there, she was a good mother. She used the barrel mechanism to look after her children, work as hard as she could. And eventually she got through with her papers, as we say, and she took up the 2 youngest of the 5 children. The girl went all right, eventually got married and kind of integrated. The boy was stabbed on the street of New York. The same kind of street corner habits that he had in East Kingston, he took there, and he was stabbed to death. And I remember visiting her in New York and listening to her, because she had made choices for her children's sake. But when the choices she had made could give her the money to buy a plane fare to look after them and so on, but she had no idea the cost that she would have paid. And so when I saw her after her son had just been stabbed to death, it was to hear the regret, that it was not worth it in her mind. Because now that she could afford to have them with her, they were not there, and the damage done to them in that period when they were left alone to fend for themselves cost the boy his life. Very often it is churches and so on that can teach people the value of family in that sense. The value of being there to be a parent, to go to parent-teachers meeting, to see to it that them do them homework, to postpone sex, to avoid the street corner at night. That is what parenting can do. And if you don't give...
We're going to talk about that and more after the break, because I have a story for you also. So we're going to go to a break, and we're going to take in the 10:30 newscast, and we'll be right back with The Rock on Dysfunctional Families.
This Testimony Tuesday, May 4, inside Alive 1 to 5. Join us for another show packed with good music and inspirational stories. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock. At 2:15 inside the evidence, we share with you a powerful conversion testimony of Luke Horn. Then at 3 p.m., we return behind the pulpit of Pastor Sheldon Evans of the Evangelism Family Life Ministries from New York. And he's going to share part 2 of his transformational story. All this and more will come alive on the family station Love 101.
Come on now, wave. Everybody wave. Get something away. Come on now, move. Everybody move. Come on now, move.
Listen for the Morning Watch Wednesday, May 5 at 7 a.m. with host Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint in the First Watch, The Crisis in India, Concerns and Considerations, and in the Second Watch, U.S. Catholic Bishops, President Biden and the Forbidding of Communion. That's the Morning Watch, Wednesday, May 5 at 7 a.m. with host Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint, right here on Love 101, the family station.
Good morning. I'm Derval Graham with your mid-morning news update, written and produced by Jamaica's first digital media house, My Jamaica Today, only 3 clicks away, and presented by Love 101 FM, the family station. Now the news. Call for high-level summit on child abuse. Founder of Hear the Children Cry, Betty Ann Blaine, has called once again on Prime Minister Andrew Holness to convene a high-level child abuse summit to implement urgent measures to rescue the nation's children from sexual abuse. The call was repeated in the wake of the incident that occurred on April 26, in which a 13-year-old girl was attacked, abducted, and buggered by 5 men in St. Anne recently, and reports of another incident on the weekend in which a 5-year-old boy was buggered in the same parish of St. Anne. Ms. Blaine believes these incidents paint a bleak picture for the start of the Child Month 2021, which is set to honor and celebrate the nation's children. She is urging the Prime Minister and members of civil society to take a stand to protect children. Last week, Capri highlighted that reduction in decent parental supervision is low in low-income households has led to young children being sexually abused. ODPEM boss throws in the towel. Leslie Herro has resigned as head of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. According to reports, his decision to quit the job is based on allegations of political interference in the performance of his duties. Mr. Herro had been in the job for only 6 months. His resignation took effect on Friday, 30th of April. The country's chief disaster management agency is now without a leader, just a month away from the annual hurricane season, which begins officially on June 1. Metro overpass collapses, killing almost 24 people. A metro overpass collapsed in Mexico City as a train was traveling over it, killing at least 23 people, including children. This was confirmed by the city's mayor, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. At least another 65 people were injured, 7 of them now in serious condition. One person trapped underneath the wreckage of one of the train coaches was pulled out alive. This is the deadliest incident in decades in the city's metro system, which is one of the world's busiest. Moderna to the rescue. Moderna will supply up to 500 million doses of its coronavirus vaccine to campaign backed by the World Health Organization, WHO, starting later this year. The agreement was announced yesterday amid growing calls from both vaccine makers and wealthy nations to do more to address the vaccination gap between rich countries and the rest of the world. And those are the news stories in the watch list in your mid-morning news update, written and produced by Jamaica's first digital media house, My Jamaica Today, and only 3 clicks away, presented by Love 101 FM, the family station. I'm Derval Graham, thanking you for listening. You have a safe and productive day.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm Pastor Steve Blair, your host, and you're tuned in. You're tuned into the Rock on Love 101 FM. If there's a topic you'd like to discuss, even a topic that may have the church on different sides of the fence, let us know. And if you have a spiritual passion, knowledge, and background, and would like to be considered as a special guest, also let us know. We're talking today about dysfunctional families. Post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live and our YouTube Live channels, broadcast of The Rock. And voice note should be no more than 30 seconds. And turn your radio down as you give your voice note messages. This is The Rock, and with me today is Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper. And we'll be here together until noon, looking at this very important topic that impacts our families, impacts our nation. And I just don't believe people see this as something from the Bible, Dr. Roper, but we can talk about Adam and Eve. We can talk about Abraham and Sarah bringing Hagar into the mix, bringing forth um, a son that then rivals the son that God promised. We can talk about Jacob and his choice of his favorite son. We can talk about Isaac and his choice and of and how all of that impacted the relationships, bringing forth even murder, hatred, robbery, all of these things taking place in families. Dr. Roper, this is indeed a very important topic. Dr. Roper? Well, while he's coming on, I'll just go over some of what I discussed from the Bible a while ago, because the the issue is so important. I
Right. So I'm responding. I'm responding to what you said.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, what I said is that if you get everything right, there is still a risk and danger because bad children have come from good families.
Yes.
It isn't necessarily a one-to-one correspondence between a breakdown in the choices made by parents and what children come out to do. But if in fact you get things wrong, the domino effect can last for generations, and I think we have to start there. So I was very intrigued by the call by Mrs. Blair for the Prime Minister to host a summit. With the greatest of respect, I don't really think that prime ministers have the effect that we think they do on matters of this nature, right? I think perhaps a broader civil society coalition, if we are clear as to what the ideal is, because we're not always clear about what the ideal is. If you go back and look at the history of cruelty to children, perhaps the period of greatest cruelty was the 1920s. And some of the sources of the greatest cruelty was when religious people were in charge of wards of the state. Because by definition at that time, we thought of children as an extension of the labor market. And the children were unable to play the role that we think they ought to play as participants in the labor market. So we have a long way to go to climb back out of the hole we have dug for ourselves as families in this country, Hello? Hello?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Right.
And we are continuing to dig holes. I just believe that we haven't taken the time as a nation to look at this topic and the effect. As I spoke to you yesterday, I remember reminding you of what you said the last time you were here and how that impacted me. That from the days back of slavery, um, the the need by the plantation owners to or their desire to keep the men from procreating and men having to run around and do different things with at different plantations um, seems to be one of those things that have continued throughout the years in Jamaica. That we've just not been addressing the issues like these on a social level that impact our everyday lives, even as
Right.
pastors.
Yeah, but what we have failed to see is the continuity between how we were allowed to live in the period of slavery and how we live today. We haven't addressed not what we tend to want to speak to is the psychology of the individual and them taking responsibility, and a measure of that is required. But often it is the social circumstances. So let's use the problem of housing or unorganized housing settlement as a problem. So we're thinking about family and where the family lives and cohabits is important in discussing families. So if you take, say, St. James and Montego Bay, which is surrounded by squatter settlements, because the holders of land prevented the people who were employed from acquiring titles for their land. The major investment is tourism, and tourism failed to make a social investment in the community. So if you drive from Ocho and go west to Negril, the development is on the right hand side of the road, and on the left hand side is bush. The problem is that the people who work on the right hand side live on the left hand side. Now, there is a consequence to the absence of the social investment in terms of the quality of the housing stock, in terms of the quality of education and health care available to the people, and that has downstream effect. So to speak special platitude about people not taking risky decisions about migration at the expense of their children and the other things that we talk about is to ignore the causal relationship between the circumstances in which they live and the behavior that they are tending to have and the consequences, the downstream consequences. So any conversation about child welfare has to look at what we have to do to create a more inclusive social space and a more equal social reality for our people. Yes. However, think about what we allow businesses to get away with in terms of what they pay people and the hours they expect them to work. There's nothing about tourism that is a friend of the Jamaican family. When a mother leaves for work on Monday and overnights because she has to nanny the guest, what happened to that mother's children? When the father is a bartender or a taxi operator, the best money is made at night, what happens to their children? So we have to think about those things in order to mitigate the impact of the dysfunction, the violence, the abuse that we are now facing. Yes. But we have to spend some time talking about what are the ultimate values, what is really important. Is it the car I drive? How my house is painted or how it is situated? Is that what is most important? How much money I can spend, whether I can drink Johnny Walker or some such thing? What are the values that are really lasting and eternal? And that's a conversation that as a country we have to have.
Yes, and let's talk about some of the issues that are taking place now in the country, beyond the business, but within the homes that are generating some of these situations. I mentioned earlier Agar, Sarah, Abraham, and the result being Ishmael and Isaac. We have many homes today across Jamaica where the Ishmael Isaac situation has been set up. Some have loving, but many situations like that where there are multiple mothers or multiple fathers, and oftentimes children are meeting their brothers or sisters for 15, 20 years, or growing up without true love as a part of the dysfunction that is taking place in the everyday home. How do you speak to
very often we read the story of Agar, Abraham, and Sarah wrongly, because we read the story by believing that Hagar had an illegitimate child, right? Because she was married to Abraham. The Jamaican people reading that story don't read it that way. What the failure is, the failure of the consent, because remember that Hagar had the consent of both Abraham and Sarah.
Yes.
And then she was unready to deal with the consequence of that consent. And the family which can take care of the extended family is in a better position than those who have an extended family but are pretending that their family is only the nuclear family. right? So we have to start with that, because when you take a decision, you take responsibility for the consequences of your decision. You can't have a child and then throw it out like how Abraham and Sarah did to young Mr. Ishmael and young Miss Hagar. You can't do that, right? And the story of the Bible is the way in which, whereas Sarah and Abraham abandoned Hagar, God did not, right? And the same thing, we have had the legacy of bastardy in this country. We have had the legacy of patchwork parenting. And we need to help people to accept their reality for what it is, and then to act ethically, morally, and compassionately towards those who are vulnerable. The children have no say in what their parents did and how they came. And therefore, they should not be punished for it. The other thing now is to take out the abuse we have received and the self-doubt we have on our children.
Yes.
Right? Now, when 5 men, I can't think about it, Steve. I can't work it out. What would make 5 men behave worse than some dog with a 13-year-old girl? But they will all turn themselves in. Right? So, is there nobody a tell lie upon that, per se? Something profoundly wrong has taken place in the psychology of our young men and boys. When some grandfather would rape a 5-year-old boy, something profoundly wrong has taken place. And in our conversation, we have to go beyond mere condemnation to look at the therapy. I was with a man yesterday. The man, who works in his job, I won't name it because I don't want to identify him, was arrested by the police and held in custody for 9 or 10 days in central lockup. No, there is no justifiable basis. The police found ammunition in the yard in which he lived and decided to just lock him up for it. They know that they couldn't establish the nexus between him and the ammunition, but they did it anyway. And for however long that is 1 meal a day, he told me, that you are fed when you are in central lockup, 1 meal a day. And he told me that he ate half a meal in the day and kept the other half in the night, right? He said to me when I went to visit him in lockup that the place needs sprayed out. When I looked on the board that tells you how many people, there were 161 persons in central. I don't believe that place was built to accommodate 300.
No, I will tell you, though this is not a part technical of the topic, this is something that's passionate for me as a former prison chaplain to see the lockups in Jamaica. I went to Central Lockup and I saw 6-7 men in one little room, one little place. It's hot. There's not enough food. I'm seeing situations where police are not even giving them their medicine. I intend personally to set up a meeting with the commissioner.
The jailer and the jailer are also in jail. The policemen feel that God has done them a disservice when they end up having to do a tour of duty in that place. But
I intend to set up a meeting, sir, with the commissioner to deal with this issue and to find churches to help me provide beds.
Counting his salary.
Just a second, Rev. I intend to find pastors like yourself and myself to go and meet with the commissioner. I want to provide at least 1,000 beds. I got to get some churches on board because not everybody in the lockup is guilty.
Well, nobody is
things in there. Thank you very much.
Proven guilty in a court.
Thank you very much.
Just to go there for a day is a sentence already, And police have a love affair with taking up young boys off the street and carrying them there.
Yes.
And there's a lot of under 25-year-olds are in there thinking that they're, on their way to becoming bad men. And they're not lasting more than 5 years. We think of gunmanship as being with us for the last 40 or 50 years. The gunmanship has been with us, but not the same gunman. right? Is a recycled thing. The one you see today, you will see perhaps for 5 or more years, and then him dead or gone prison. But the fact is, the society brutalizes its own. If you watch the news, not nowadays because they avoid us seeing too much violence on TV, it is social media that is telling us about the violence. But the media has to protect the government, so it doesn't show us everything. But if you watch that thing, it brutalizes you, you know. You become numb. You imagine the people who have to deal with it, who have to deal, hear gunshot, see the man them with a black or red tired, walking with them 16 like them a police, right? And coming at you without protection. You can't even talk or them come back and kill. You can't even have a night. I see some women went to a funeral the other day and they killed 2 of them on the way back from the funeral, as if that's a crime.
Yes.
Right? But so when you look at the men who behave like dogs with that little girl, you have to go upstream and say, what produces them? And you have to go downstream and say, what therapy, what interventions can be developed as a society to mitigate that kind of, that kind of dysfunction, that violence that you see there. Right? We have to make the society more fair, more just, more gentle, more compassionate. And
I want to look at the solutions that I know that you want to talk about and the just in the next half of the program. But I really want to look at the issues so that we can bring these to the fore in the minds of people. Before the news, you were talking about the woman who went away. And I have a situation myself where when I was pastoring in Cayman, some kids came from Jamaica for the summer. When I had my summer camp, a 15-year-old boy told me how happy he was to be there with his mother for the first time in like 8 or 9 years, because he grew up on the streets, and it was the drug dons that took him in hand and developed him. That by the time he was 15 years old, he was already a gunman. So somehow it just seems to me that we are, as I've been saying over and over and over, that we are not aware, as you said earlier, of what our actions are causing. You're in a 1-bedroom house, and you're bringing a man in, and your children are in the room, but you're still sleeping with this man. It's going to create further issues. There are families in Jamaica where every female in the family has a child before they're 18 years old, and it continues generation after generation after generation. And that's why I want to talk about this issue today, because I'm passionate about seeing this change.
Hello?
Yes, Rev.
Well, I mean, yeah, we have to kind of get past some things when we discuss the issues. One of them is the culture and history of shaming. So we tend to find moral fault and shame. And sometimes the people we are shaming and blaming are themselves victims. And the circumstances are not so much a consequence of irresponsible choice as of survival challenges, right? We have those issues we have to work through. But
oftentimes they're not even aware, Rev. They don't see it as an issue.
I agree.
And it becomes a generational issue because their children come and do the same thing.
I'll tell you 2 stories along the line. Many years ago, when I was chairman of the JUTC, I was on my way out of the country. I was going somewhere. I don't remember where. And when I got to the airport, an immigration officer, I believe, approached me and she said, "You saw you drop it in? You raised the bus fare and then you left the country." But I kind of couldn't remember that bus fare was to go up the following day, and it was my decision. But that's the point. And then she smiled and said, "That's not what I want to tell you about, What I wanted to do," she said, "was to thank you," she said. And she wanted to thank me, she said, because she lived as a child on Gold Street in Kingston. And I had built a park. Actually, I didn't build it by myself. Mr. Jocelyn of USAID was leaving the country and provided the sponsorship to build a park at the corner of East Street and Law Street, adjacent to the church that I was pastor of. So it was kind of my initiative, but I didn't pay for it. And we built a park, and she was telling the story that each day she would walk up to East Queen Street from Gold Street, walk along East Queen Street, which is almost no man's land, to East Street, and come to wait her turn to go in the swing and the park, right? It was a big thing for her. And so here she was now an adult, and this was like 20 odd years later, and she just wanted to thank me for having built that park for the children, right? Now, often when you go into a community that is decrepit and derelict and suffers from urban blight, when you look around, the green spaces and the spaces for children are just not present. And that is one of the ways in which we can humanize and make the community more gentle, create more play area, more common spaces, teach them how to share, and teach them how to express themselves and to enjoy themselves. So I think that that's one of the ways in which we have to rethink, reimagine community. We have to create safe areas in community for people to develop and to become themselves. The other story I want to tell you is that when I was downtown, I came up with the idea while P.J. Patterson was Prime Minister of employing young adolescents from the inner city for summer employment program. Because at the time I was thinking that this would give them a kind of, apprenticeship and exposure to workplaces. So I went to the Prime Minister at the time and asked him if he could help me find the sponsorship to employ, at the time was 100 young people from the inner city. And I would pay them the salary for the 3-week employment, but place them in various spaces. So my first trip included 103 young people, but nobody would agree to take them for 3 weeks. So I prevailed on the commissioner. I can't remember who was commissioner at the time, perhaps somebody like Herman Ricketts or something, commissioner of police, for me to place them at the police station. And they didn't work out where they would place them. And police station didn't have the space those days to put young people. So they'd tell me to send the 103 young people up to the commissioner's office on Old Hope Road. And I did. By midday, they called me from the commissioner's office, asked me to come and take back the young people because they had gone there and they were in the mango tree over guardsman. They were all over the place. One thing they were not doing is being gainfully employed, right? So it taught me the necessity of socializing the young people, giving them the clothes to wear, which was a T-shirt and a black bottom, and talk to them about what it means to operate in a work environment. And by the time I left government in 2001, that 103 young people had become 6,000 young people each summer, right? But it was an investment in the re-socialization of young people, right? To make them more gentle, to make them more orderly, to make them have a higher view of themselves, and to make them, help them out to integrate into the community. And my budget, PG had given me $1 million in the first year. My budget when I left government was $50 million, right? Now, what I see of the summer employment, because it still exists in many different incarnations, but what I see of it now, it is too sanitized, meaning it goes for people who already have families that will give them a leg up anyway, and people that will have direct political benefits, rather than aiming at the very vulnerable section of the population, what we call at-risk youth, right? So I think those are the kinds of things. But part of the problem with the society is the imagination is not there. And part of the thing is that we haven't thought about the in-between steps. So we have these big goals, but we don't think about what are some incremental steps in between where we are and the goals we want to get to. And that's what I think we need in this matter of violence against vulnerable and against children. Hello? I feel like I keep losing you.
Not hearing you, Steve. All right, you're tuned to Love 101 FM, the family station. We'll be right back as a picture. Thank you for making it Love 101.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Social media has never been more important. Let Films Creative Agency help you to make an impact. If you want to stay relevant, offer convenience to your customers, and quickly communicate with your target audience, you need to contact Films Creative Agency today at 876-543-6701 or send an email to connect@filmsja.com. Leave a digital footprint that will last.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Morning, man. What is this foolishness about farming inside your house?
We have a greenhouse where we grow tomatoes, you know.
Aye, poor me.
You know me love about it, mama. You can grow a certain crop in night long after the season done.
Pity we couldn't do that for you, eh?
And me, man, Barry the barometer. Protect your crops from the serious weather caused by climate change. Invest in greenhouse farming. No crop damage from rain or drought, and less disease too. Food security for surety.
Smart and steady, get climate ready.
Visit PPCRJA on Facebook for more on climate change.
Everyday living, we make it worthwhile. Real people, real value. Oh, what a style! From kitchen to bathroom, a whole heap of tile. Home and things for everyday living. Nice up your home, fix up every room. Shop everyday, shop real value. Fixtures and faucets to catch your eye. We have the options, we have the style. Everyday living, so versatile. Real people, real value. Oh, what a style! Lowest price guarantee on everything you see. Home and things for everyday living.
Need financial breathing.
Welcome back. Dr. Roper, sorry you couldn't hear me as we were coming out of the break or into the break. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been looking at dysfunctional behavior, and of course, already the good Dr. Roper is giving us some solutions. That solution regarding the play areas is one that is so important. Dr. Roper, listening to that story, I see so many parents, especially during COVID, locking their children inside, doing schoolwork. Some get very little time on the outside, very little time with other children. That story you gave of the play areas, moving away from the social isolation, was an excellent one. What would you say to parents today who are struggling with how do I cope during this lockaway year?
Like this story of the buggering of the children, the first defense that a majority of parents will have is to prevent their children from going outside. Because they don't want to happen to them. It's better than lock up in a house and suffocate than for them to go out and experience that. That's how especially the mothers, are going to think. But, you know, the park I built downtown Kingston wasn't the last one I built. The last one I built in Portmore. When I did it with the help of Tankwell Group and Red Stripe, which is a basketball court complete with stands and lights in Edgewater, Portmore.
By the roundabout.
Yes. So the reason, the thinking wasn't mine alone. Chris Bicknell and Bruce Bicknell were also pivotal, and they've repeated the idea since then. The thinking was that the young men are going to play basketball, right? But we don't want them to go there and play basketball at the expense of their family. Many of them are parents. So the thinking of the stand was to encourage their baby mothers and their little baby to come and sit in the stand and watch them play. And we put a fence around it in order to encourage those persons who sell orange and, you know, can make soup and so on to come and do their little, especially when there was a game on. Now, the most critical part of it was the investment in ensuring light. When I was downtown and when I was chairman of the STC, I introduced these outdoor hard courts, you know, in building basketball. But I couldn't solve the problem of night. The time that people would most likely play is in the evening when it is cooler, when they have come from work and so on. But how could I put lights on the courts? You know, how would I pay for it? And this particular court had the ingenious thing of a token machine purchased from Japan. And the token machine enabled the boys who were going to play, I think at the time was $600 an hour. So 5 of them are going to play. They come with the $600 and they go and buy 1 hour of electricity. Invariably, because they want to play longer, they would buy 2 hours of electricity. And the machine will go off for 10 minutes. So they prepay for the electricity, you know. And therefore, they would never have risk of it being cut off, because it's only used if you pay for it. You pay for it and so on. And when I was chairman of NESAL, I tried to introduce that idea of people paying for electricity, you know, by just like when you buy a prepaid phone card.
Yes.
So you could then master your nights and so on. And I wanted to have experimented with Greater Portmore with solar panels and so on. But anyway, that's for another lifetime. But the idea was to make play integrated with family and integrated with community. And that I still believe in. And I believe that Portmore is next to the ideal community to develop these common spaces, to build an Emancipation Park. People don't remember how Emancipation Park took the nights and gave it back to the people.
Yes.
Right? Because people could come and walk in a safe area. That's how Emancipation Park. And I used to argue with Kingsley Thomas at the time and Earl Samuels, who was, you know, the CEO at Housing Trust, to let's do it again. You know, and I tried to make a case to do it in Portmore.
Let me ask you a question. I hear this talk about these parks. While we have this discussion on dysfunctional families, what would you say to parents? Their children, the young people today, the children especially, are living on tablets and phones. But when I hear you talk about Emancipation Park and the parks that you've built, I'm getting the vision of families going for a walk. I'm getting the vision of people moving beyond the 4 walls of the house. I'm getting a view of communication and people talking once again, not one person in one room and somebody else in another room.
Right. Well, you know, I'm not inventing anything. The cities in Europe, you know, have their parks, and they say that if you look at Jamaica, its cities and towns, they were built off the template of the cities in England. The only difference is the parks. And the reason the slave owners and plantation owners never built the park here is because they never intended to live here. When you go back and look at their spaces, there are cycling tracks, there are walkways. I studied in Exeter in the south of England when I was doing PhD work, right? You walked, even in 6 degrees below zero weather. You walked. That's what you did. You can't put out your hand and stop a taxi in England, you know. You have a call a taxi. If you put out your hand, a taxi drive past the same way, right? So people, there's a set of people who drive and there's a set of people who walk. Everybody walks. It's just a matter of when. And if we were to make our communities less violent, we have to make them more gentle. We have to go now and build the common area and teach people how to use common areas. If you live in a gated community, it's the same thing. The families will drive in and drive out and not know each other's name. If, on the other hand, there were a common area, a park, they would meet each other. And in that space, after a while, this is a person who they meet when they walk, or when they're running, or when they're playing basketball, or when they take their children to the thing. That's how you build community.
Yeah, so now we're playing basketball and table tennis and dominoes in that common area. Right. We become familiar with each other. We look out for each other.
Well, the complicated language you use is social solidarity. When I was chairman of the bus company, it's one of the things that I operated from, that the bus was a space for social solidarity. And again, if I could refer to England, when you go to England, to London, it is the tube. The person who is the CEO of the company and the person who is the janitor are all on the tube, in them jacket and tennis shoes and all of that, all on the tube. No, we don't have any space really for social solidarity in Jamaica, right? We don't have a train anymore, and we barely have a functional bus service, right? We have a little bit of lick shot thing. But the idea of the bus company that I had in mind, you know, when I was its chair, was one in which it is both clean. You remember that Hardly Lewin was my executive director, stopped preaching on the bus. But the thinking was, you come there shouting at these people sitting in the bus. Give them silence or give them a chance to have a conversation with each other. Because that's what it is for.
Yes.
So the violence you read about in St. Anne is predictable. It is the chickens coming home to roost of a society that has not thought sufficiently about the intermediary steps.
I can see what you're saying, because I'm thinking back to 2009. I'm sitting in my office, and there are two stories here. A young man comes to me and says, I'm a gunman, but I don't want to be a gunman, but I have no way. Everybody I go to, no one wants to hire me, and I want to look after my daughter. So at that point, I give him food and drink to take home, but that's only going to last him for a while. We as Christians, we keep just saying pray for people, but there's got to be so much more intervention. I think of the lady that came to my office several months later and says to me that she needs help. And I said, what's the help that you need? And she says, well, the Don wants my daughter. And I go, the Don, no, I've lived abroad 27 years. I'm coming back into Jamaica. I'm hearing this for the first time. And then I'm learning that this is quite regular. The Don has sent her daughter to school. There's been no other way for her family to survive other than the Don. And so when it comes now to the Don saying, I want your daughter, she feels, well, Pastor, I have no choice, but I don't want to send my daughter. So there's so much taking place in our society that is making things worse within the homes, but it's for us as churches and leaders and communities not to depend on government wholeheartedly, but to take steps to make these things better by just enacting some things, as, for example, your social space, but in her case, and in the case of the young man, finding ways to make them progressive and prosperous.
I'm very interested in something in today's paper, right? And I'm going to come back to how you frame the issues. Yesterday in the paper was a picture of a man whose hand was amputated and he later died. We're told he was attacked by a shark. In today's paper, the shark is in the paper, and the shark has been cut in two, and proof of the man's fist is in the shark's stomach. And then there's a story built around it about people not allowing themselves to be intimidated. Now, I thought to myself, how many people have been slaughtered in Westmoreland, not by sharks, but by gunmen? If you can find a shark at sea, right? The shark hit a man on the weekend and you find him on Monday and kill him. You must be able to find a gunman.
Yes.
It's far easier to search for a gunman on land than a shark at sea. So what has happened to the society is that the collective will to expunge this violence has not been there. And what we have done now is creating that counter lay, a super lay on our society, of them being an alternative source.
Yes. While Dr. Roper continues, going to let you know the phone lines are open. 876-968-8327, 876-968-8328. You can send in your WhatsApp messages to our WhatsApp phone line, and that's 997-3125. 997-3125. We want to hear from you. Your thoughts on what's happening around the country. What's happening with our families? This is Child Month, and certainly our children can be in a better place, but it depends on what happens in the home. And we're looking at it. How can we make the home better? How can we make it better for your children as we look at dysfunctional families? I'll take a break. And I'll be back in 2 minutes. I want to hear your phone call, 968-8327, 968-8328. We'll be right back.
Hey, campus, do you have a favorite teacher? Oh yeah, we know. And we want you to help us celebrate the profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. Teaching! So connect with us this Tuesday, May 4 at 5:30 p.m. during Campus Connection for our pre-Teachers Day celebration, where you can simply send us a voice note of 30 seconds or less via our WhatsApp line with your Teachers Day greeting. Also, stay tuned for education news, campus tune, and our new testimonial feature dubbed I Chose Christ, You Should Too. That's Campus Connection. This Tuesday, May 4, the pre-Teachers Day celebration. And you get to be a part of it by simply sending a 30-second shout out to your favorite teacher to 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. Campus Connection happens this and every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. with Reverend Stevenson Samuels and Floyd Wilson, right here on Love 101, the family station.
We are what a one campus. We are carry the Lord on campus. I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling blessed.
This Testimony Tuesday, May 4 inside Alive 1 to 5. Join us for another show packed with good music and inspirational stories. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock. At 2:15 inside the evidence, we share with you a powerful conversion testimony of Luke Horn. Then at 3 p.m., we return behind the pulpit of Pastor Sheldon Evans of the Evangelism Family Life Ministries from New York. And he's going to share part 2 of his transformational story. All this and more will come alive on the family station Love 101.
Come on now, wave. Everybody wave.
We have been asked to announce the deaths of Jeremiah Cunningham, Desna Mae Ferguson, Amelia Edwards. Jeremiah Cunningham, Mass Papa of K Valley St. Anne, died March 16, leaving 13 children, 27 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, brother, sister, nieces, nephews, other relatives, and friends. Body of Jeremiah Cunningham, Mass Papa, leaves House of Wills Mortuary Thursday, May 6, to the Clarksonville Baptist Church Cemetery for funeral service and interment at 12 p.m. Desna Mae Ferguson, Mama of Tollgate, Four Paths, Clarendon, and Catadaipa St. James, died March 10, leaving 11 children, 16 grandchildren, 13 great grandchildren, 3 sisters, nieces, nephews, church family, other relatives, and friends. Body of Desna Mae Ferguson, Mama, leaves House of Wills Mortuary Friday, May 7, to the Four Paths United Church Cemetery, Four Paths, Clarendon, for funeral service and interment at 2 p.m. Amelia Edwards of Church Pen, Old Harbor, died April 23, leaving husband Earl, children Shael, Jonathan, and Elizabeth, parents Frederick and Joycelyn, 3 brothers, 2 sisters, nieces, nephews, other relatives, and friends. Body of Amelia Edwards leaves House of Wills Mortuary Thursday, May 6, to the Thetford Park Cemetery, Church Pen, Old Harbor, for funeral service and interment at 11 a.m. May their family, members, and friends find peace during this time, and may their souls rest in peace. You're tuned to Love 101 FM. Thank you for making it Love 101. It's 11:22. We now go back to The Rock. Sorry, we're not hearing you. Not sure why. It's been on and off. Thank you so much for making it Love 101. We are rejoining our team members for The Rock, having a little audio challenge. Let me make sure everything is right here. Okay, let's try again. Oh no. All right, let's figure out what's happening. No. You're muted. You're muted. Okay.
Welcome back.
Okay.
I try to use it with my headphone, but for some reason it goes somewhere. So if you're listening on the radio, you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, welcome to this show. We're talking about dysfunctional families. And of course, we have with us the Right Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper. Man, the words of wisdom coming from this man's mouth, the experience he's brought to the show today is so important. And just want to let you know, you can call in today. The phone lines are open. Let's talk about some of the issues you're seeing. Let's talk about some of the solutions you have. 968-8327, 968-8328. I do see on Facebook that people are tuning in. And Carlene Mendez says, good morning, Pastor Blair. I'm here talking to myself. So funny we can hunt down and find a shark in the sea. Sorry for the loss. That's what we should do, to hunt down the criminals, just like Pastor Roper said. Alderman Ennis says, I love this conversation. And here's another word coming on Facebook. It's coming from the lovely Elsie Knight, who's with us every week. We're living in the last days where the heart of man becomes desperately wicked. There's no love. When I was growing up in the village, the village raised the child. Goes back to some of what we were talking about earlier, the involvement of everybody, the involvement of just going around, meeting your neighbors, doing all the things. But let me go back to the Bible and throw one more. Um, Ray Shields is looking for the program on baptism. Look somewhere in love. It should be there in the history somewhere, or go to my Facebook page, Herro Blair. It should be there somewhere. Now, going back, Pastor Roper, just for a minute to the Bible.
I'm sorry, we have a caller on the line.
Okay. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Uncle Steve. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. And,
yes.
and what do you bring to the program today?
The program, and I listen to Dr. Roper. You get good morning, Dr. Roper.
Hi, how are you?
And I listen. I said, my God, in Jamaica, we don't have our priorities right. Our priorities are not right at all because we are not prioritizing the family. Where we mothers, yes, I know in Jamaica we have a lot of single parent home, but in my mother's days and coming up, the family was the extended family, not just the mother, the father, the children. And so where the younger parents have to go out and work, you would have the older parents who take care of the children. All children are suffering because of lack of love and lack of priority. And selfish parents too, because as parents we choose what's best for us, not thinking of how it's going to affect our children. And if we are going to fix the problem that we are having, we have to start thinking about our children. What a way Jamaica started Parents Month this year. What a way to start it. And as a church, we have to start thinking about our families, how to help younger parents, how to still work to provide for their children, but still make time for the family. Right. And that recreational area that Dr. Roper talks about, it is vital for families because when you don't, it's not every home has space where you can go to and play and all. But if you have a community park where you can go and you can meet, I like to walk in my community because that's how I really get to know the people who live in my community. I don't drive every time. I walk and I say hi to somebody, and sometimes I say, I didn't know that she lives here, and I didn't know that. But when you walk, you get to meet people, you get to converse with people, and the children, at the time, would not have allowed me to give you a story about a little 10-year-old. I was going to work last week and see just she on the road after 4. I was amazed at the stuff. I could not go where I was going, knowing that she was alone and I had to turn back and to seek her to just not to leave her on the road at after 4. Where is your mommy? Our mommy gonna leave her because she couldn't find her slippers on time. I tell you, we have to prioritize what is best for our children and get back to raising the family as an extended family, not just mommy and daddy. And I'll give somebody else a chance to call you. But it's a very good conversation and I'm learning.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I agree with that mother there. Seriously, we have to increase our awareness of the other. And Steve, I'm of the view, right, that we have to restructure church time, and that has been the value of these lockdowns, where you're doing church online, and you've come to figure out what is the essential, what's the core. But I would like to see us add to our liturgy a period of conversation where we talk practically. Sometimes somebody don't see their blind spots, like that mother now. She has to catch a bus or she has to get to work at time, and her child leave her slippers, right? She don't think of what the consequences are. Tell her, you walk and catch me up. If she don't think about it, something have to happen. And then she says, me never think about that. Right? And sometimes we are so busy punishing because we have that kind of judgmental streak that to punish somebody is more important than anything. And we convince ourselves that to punish them is the best way to teach them. It's not true. Example is the best teacher.
So let's go back to scripture now. I wanted to mention right before the break the story of Isaac, Jacob, Esau. That's a story where we find Isaac and Rebekah having
favorites, just like how just like how Jacob had his favorite Joseph, and there were issues with the brothers. We see Isaac preferring Esau, seemingly his firstborn. We see Rebecca preferring Jacob. Throughout that whole lineage, there is that the deception that we identify with Jacob seems to be a trait in the family, whether it's the father's family or even more so the mother's family. Her brother Laban, the same situation in giving Jacob his wife. So people just don't see all of these things taking place because they're not looking for it and seeing that this is a problem being generated that is going to affect the children. Jacob and Esau are not talking for so many years. Jacob being afraid, all because of we want to say, well, the Lord's hand was on Jacob's life, but the mother pushed for this son to get the blessing, and hence all the struggles that came from that. We see generation after generation after generation. There could have been murder. Esau could have wanted to kill Jacob.
Right.
Rev,
So the lesson really is that to make a family work, we have to learn quality, ethical decision making, both as parents and among siblings. Teach them not just how to get along, but to handle each other fairly, protecting the interest of the other person. That's a critical ingredient to a family that works. So we have to spend our time teaching the golden rule, teaching them how to put themselves in the other person's position, right? Teaching them how to share. That's why a dining table is important in a home. It's a good space to talk about us and why and where we come from, right? And that's why you want a slow cook meal, not just a buy meal. Because in the exercise of preparing the meal, I've told this story so many times, I don't remember where I've told it, but I remember some years ago, I was in Washington for a course, Washington, D.C., and I was there for 3 weeks. So I had the habit to kind of keep myself company of eating at a different ethnic restaurant each evening. And eventually, I met an Ethiopian young woman who told me where an Ethiopian restaurant was. But she said, the trouble is I have to go with you because you have to order in Amharic, and the menu is in Amharic. And so I agreed, and we went the following evening to this restaurant. And when she ordered and the food came, it was one plate. And in the one plate was the meat and the vegetables and the protein. Everything was there. And she could see the startled look in my face. And she said, that's how we eat. And she said to me, my mother and father has 5 of us. And that's how we eat. So I said, so all 5 of you, all 7 of you have to eat together. She said, yes. And I said, you can't eat until everybody come home. And she said, yes. And I said, it's important that you get along with each other. And she said, yes. Because it's hard to eat with somebody who you're vexed with, right? And you have to be mindful of the other person. Say, you one can't take off all the dumpling and eat it.
Wow.
You have to share, you have to take and leave for the other person. And it struck me that that communal meal was the way that the Ethiopians' families stay together. And those are things we have to inculcate in our families. When we see the violence, no matter what kind of car you drive or how much certificate you have, if you can't get along with your brother and sister, if them can't stick you in hospital, and you can't bring yourself to go and visit them and carry something for them, don't care how bright you are, you haven't grown well.
I like your story because it's coming back to what having that meal at the table is going to build a family. Having that time to talk is going to build a family. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, that television that's on all night long in your room and in the child's room and in somebody else's room is keeping you apart. Personally, for me, I never allowed a TV in my children's room.
Television is a non-personal member of your household, so it's a phone.
Yes,
So
I never allowed a TV in my children's room.
A member of your household who controls the relationship.
So it's very important to make some good decisions. You've been saying it all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Because that phone, that TV, that tablet is not giving us the opportunity to build family.
Yeah, it's a non-personal member. Takes away from others.
Boy, I want to tell you, we should be getting some phone calls. 968-8327, 968-8328. Pastor Blair and Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper, we're saying
voice notes
turn the TV off. You have voice notes, Nadine?
Yes. Yes.
Hi. Hi, Pastor Blair and your host, Reverend Roper. Trust me, my input into this as it pertaining to children. As the lady said before, when you grow up in those long time days, you have the extended family and the community growing a child. Nowadays, you have no community growing no child because nobody care about your child nowadays. You understand? They are more to be pulled and raped and abused. You don't have the older folks like the men taking care of the children, not even women, right? Another thing, these women are having the kids and they just have them. They don't care for them. They don't have no love for them. I was actually looking at it was a video. I don't know if it's from Jamaica or Africa, where this lady, she had a little boy and she flung him on the ground. She fling him on the ground and step in his face and step on him and box him up. I mean, this is a 9-month carry. A woman carry a child for 9 months, have the child, and this is how the child is being treated. I mean, there is no love for the children. Sometimes the children are told, even when they're there and they're trying to have a conversation, their people run them, mother run them, father run them, go sit down there, so you know, so say yeah, pick me and them little ways there. Them not encourage them, they not motivate them not talk to them. Then I mean, they treat kids as if they're not persons, they're not little ones. That's why I love the program that Auntie Colleen have on every evening, you know. Small people. Small people, these are small people. They are kids, but they are small people. We need to love them. I have a little son, and I'm telling you, to how I am so scared right now. I don't even want him to leave my sight. I don't even want him to go out through my grill because I am so scared. You don't know is who. You can't trust no one. We shouldn't be living in a society like this at all. It's totally bad.
I've seen so much dysfunctional family.
Hello, Steve.
Yeah, she's playing another one.
Okay, she's playing another one.
And every time I go on Facebook, it is a shame to see so much young people are missing. It's just a shame. And then the end of the day, when you look, I've seen the day I was at my house and you look, Godchild is taking tactical men look for men. Not men, boys. They don't know where they are.
Oh boy.
You need to be careful.
Yes.
Be careful.
Several voice notes are coming in. We also have a caller on the line at this time. Go right ahead, caller.
Hello, good day. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes, welcome to.
All right, we missed that person. Let's go to another voice note and then
call us back.
Good morning, Sister Nadine. Good morning, Pastor Blair and Dr. Garnet Roper. Dr. Roper, I am a Baptist, and I've listened to you as you came to our annual conference to lecture, and I'm just amazed by the fineness of the mind that God has given to you. I love your talk this morning, especially the parks idea, okay? But when you mentioned that you were, the one who was a part of stopping the preaching on the buses, I think that was one of the most potentially dysfunctional things that you, from the greatness of your mind, thought of, okay? And because God's word, even through vessels that are not thought suitable, God says when his word goes out, it will accomplish that which he desires. God's word heal, it overcomes this functionality. There are so many things we can't talk about this morning, but the word of God. He sent his word and he heals us. So that was one. That wasn't a great thing that you did.
Yeah.
Well, can I explain though, Steve?
Go ahead, because I will also
Go
stand up
ahead,
for you
and
on
then we
that.
have a caller on the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember,
Hello, caller.
the bus is not a private bedroom, and right? It's a public space. And as the JUTC, we have an obligation to protect the interest of the commuters.
Okay.
That is then, I'm talking about the decision making at the time.
We'll talk about that in a second, Rev. We have a caller on the line. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
And to you and your co-host. Yes.
I know this is your normal time, so welcome to the show.
Really, I called before, but the call didn't come through.
Okay.
I think before you get to 11:30, I called, but the call was not responded to. I don't know. Maybe it's my time.
All right, go right ahead.
Yes. This matter of the state of the nation, I'm speaking from an education point of view as a teacher from the system from 65. I noticed from way down there, I left college 69, came out here, and I left the classroom by God divine order in 94. And every class in that school, and not just my school alone, even in the common entrance area, you find more girls. You see, there's something I said to one of these gentlemen who was head of teacher education, joint board of teacher education at university. I said at a seminar to him that something is wrong in the education system, read the mail. Because I noticed they are always the ones that are left behind. And I don't think the matter had been corrected over the years. The male don't function as they should in the schoolroom. And again, when you come down to this matter of the steeple rape and so, one day God said to me years ago, I said in a taxi coming from Anatomy, we need to take on this matter of sex head on. It's causing a lot more problem than what the gun is causing. And instead the gun is the result of sex. Yeah? Because of these families, you're talking about dysfunctional families. And why the families are functional? We are the men. And on several occasions, I said, why aren't the men, we don't have men of quality in this nation? The gunman, them have a network across the nation. Why the men of quality if you have some network across the nation? I don't see them. Where are they? I keep saying it. Why do we having a network of gentlemen and decent men across the nation attacking this scourge, this thing, this meal thing? When you look at them full up the jailhouse, a woman alone, you could have locked down the prison and send on the police. What university full of female? Why aren't we getting God to get to the root of the problem? You can't solve this problem without God in the mix. Correct. I don't know what kind of university what them have. Me prove that. You need God in the mix. Because him create the certain way and we mess it up and pull it up and put man to lead. What have the men done to the creation? Eh? That is the question God is asking. Where are the men who say them are them make for rule? What is it them ruling? What is it them leading? Eh? The homes, when you go at the home of women, you go to church of women, you go to school of mostly women. Eh? Where are the men that God created first? So this whole matter of all of the sociology and the psychology and the ideology them. Because when we look, gentlemen, sex problem are in the church. People in the church go to prison too to molest children. This is not a matter. It's a everywhere matter. Look at David. A man like David, God said to me, say, look at him, sex pull him down. Solomon gone after 1,000 women till him turn him out into idolatry. Watch this sex thing and him not, it's just female, male. This sex thing. Him said the devil, there's an evil, the kingdom of Satan have one situation in there. And give me one article about the sex demon hierarchy. We need to get more spiritual about things. You're gonna get in a
I want to give you 2 statistics that back you up.
Yes.
Firstly, the last survey, which is probably over 10 years, about 10 years old, said that there are 8,000 teenage pregnancies in this country every year. And in some cases, we have grandmothers who are 35 years old or 30 years old.
Yes.
Secondly, the statistics in evangelism also show that when men step into the right position and give their lives to the Lord, 80% of the time, their family follows. But what we're seeing is right now, women are the ones who are giving their lives to the Lord, and only 20% of the time, the family follows. So you're making a very strong point.
No man, no, not pastor. A pure woman in the innocent, it's too old, man. What happened to the men? You can't lead this nation, you can't rule without God. Instead, the man, the head of the house, but God, the head of the man. And I was ministering in a church some years ago, and him said, what is a man without a head? Isn't that a corpse? Him said, we are the head, we are yes, it's nice and easy to talk about the head of the house, but it also said God is the head of the man. And when God is the head of the man, him can't do no foolishness. We need to look at this thing and teach the thing the way it is, and teach the Bible the way it is, and stop present a God that does not exist from the Bible. There are consequences to wrongdoings. And we must teach the consequence that is what affect the conscience. And when you lost in your conscience burn out, you do anything.
Powerful points. Powerful points.
Yes, so that is me have a whole heap of information we're passing on radio station and put in a book and all kind of stuff. Nobody not pay attention to it, you know. They were pick me up out of my job. 93 send me out here to a nation where sing eternal Father bless the land. Reading program, educate. Government don't need no money to improve the education system, I tell you. But use this program out here, you talk about that tools thing, give them. When I don't teach them with the program, we God give me them tools. Some of them gone in at the hotel, some turn this, some turn that, some turn liar. I don't choose for them. God,
all right, darling.
God make every man with potential. And when one certain thing happens, the potential come into play.
You know, we keep saying that we should have you as a guest. Thank you so much.
She is a guest every week at 11:40.
I know, for real.
No man, it's time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing. Take the kingdom.
All right,
thank you. And they must know them. Hold on, just a minute.
Quick minutes.
Yes, quick. The human being must be taught that God still rules this planet. And them can't manage it without him. I don't care what anybody want to tell me. There was a gentleman in this ministry, when he ready, God send him from a certain bus, go tell him which bus to go up and go speak. Because I know who up on the bus. Speaking a bus already. And when we come out, the whole bus load of people say, thank you, miss. You hear me? That's why I'm not make me drive. Always leave a message anywhere I'm going. So me telling us that time for get up, you see? Yes.
Okay, there. Thank you. We're going to have to run.
But we need God in the picture here, sir.
All right, then. Brother Roper?
Yes.
This bus thing coming up again, but
let me try.
I want to say in your defense that I understand.
There's a whole heap of things that I decided and was policy, but it no longer there, you know. And I don't think with due respect, the most consequential thing that I did was to say, look, I don't want anybody using preaching as a way to make money and, you know, to beg money. And I don't want you to interfere with the commuters on the bus in the captive space that time. But that's a long time ago.
Well,
What I,
I'll
what
just
I
say
do,
this in your
what
defense.
I do want to speak to is the thing about the proportion of men in the schools, in the education.
Yes, go ahead.
Years ago, Professor Errol Miller, I think at the time was the president of, was the chairman of the Joint Board of Teacher Education, wrote a book called The Marginalization of the Black Male. Just as if he wrote the book by that title twice. I'm talking about the first one, which is a little monograph, about 90 pages long. And he made the point that what we were facing now, that is in that time, in the 1980s in Jamaica, was the consequence of the closure of the male teachers' colleges in the century
His voice
before.
is gone.
Right?
Nadine, we have 2 more voice notes.
Yes, yes, we do. You're not hearing Reverend Roper?
Hello?
Yeah,
Oh, Lord.
well, yeah. So we had that that particular finding set the cat among the pigeons.
His voice is going.
We have not employed sufficient male teachers to be role models to the boys, and that is why there is a disproportionality about the outcomes in education among males versus females. Hello?
All right.
Hello?
Thank you so much, Rev. It seems that we're having some audio challenges. Steve, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Okay, so you have 2 more voice notes. I couldn't hear him for a while, but yes.
Okay.
Pastor Dean. Yes, Pastor Blair, Reverend Roper, and Auntie Nadine. Just want to say good morning. The past has been spoken about, but my big deal is moving forward. What do we do moving forward? Knowing COVID come, people still have to go work, children have to stay home, there is nowhere to leave them. What will we do? What will the state step in to help? Others, the bills are still coming, everything is happening, and we don't know what will we do moving forward. Yes, some of us care and we will try to help in our community, but not everybody. Most people turn a blind eye. What will we do moving forward? That's my question.
Okay, we'll answer that. The next one then.
Reverend Roper and Rev, pleasant morning. Time is short, I know that. I've got 3 beautiful children, and they were grown with me without their father. They are 3 of best children in society. We need to do what we have to do. The government have a lot to play. We need to get on, do what we have to do, and stop talking about where are the men. We can grow our children and grow them right. Mine was grown and well put together and in society, giving back to society. Bless you, Reverend. I need to talk to you.
Okay, she didn't say which one, but
That's you.
Rev, we have 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes to talk about the way forward, as you were doing earlier. And that's the question she's asking. I will say publicly, congratulations to the mothers who've done a great job. But Pastor Blair will always say, children need to be able to respond to a mother and a father, and that each carry forth a role in that child's life. But I will close off after you close off, Rev.
I'm moving to Zambia. Just on that note, and I'm leaving in July. I have a granddaughter, and my daughter is expecting what would be a grandson for me. And it is one of the major things that I have to think about, not only in going, but about when I'm scheduled to come back. And that is the fact that I will be absent in a real way from my grandchildren's life. No, that is my grandchildren who already have mother and father. I can't imagine what it would be if my children, 2 girls and a boy, were grown without a father, even if their mother were competent to do everything right. a father is still needed. And too many of our families do not have. The lady asked a question as to practically what can be done. Now, I think churches can play a greater role with camps and aftercare support to just give parents some option. Probably we think about things all in terms of their financial impact, meaning how will we pay for it, at what cost will we deliver it, how will we ensure that those who need it most can afford it. But what we need to think about is the impact we could use that time to make in the lives of a child, the relationship we could encourage them to forge, and the values we could teach them, I think we need to think about it like that, Thank you so much for raising the conversation. We need to think beyond the personal things to policy things. We have to give the ideals a chance to percolate into the society so that the government, the public leaders can develop policy and legislative initiatives to give effect to these things.
Can you do a minute prayer for our families, especially those that need some intervention from the Holy Spirit? Can you do a prayer for our churches and our pastors that we can be connected enough to hear a direction to go in that can benefit our families?
God our Father, we commit to you, especially the families in St. Anne, of those two children that have been the victim of a most horrendous form of violence. Be with those two children, be with their families, give them the grace, help them to recover, and thank you for speedy justice. We commit our country into your hand, the love of violence, the abandonment of what is right and good, the love of money, and we pray that you would allow a new spirit to emerge. We pray for your church, its rich leadership. Help us to spend time getting our message from you rather than from the social media and from our favorite ideological impact groups. We pray, God, that we would be a source of a city of refuge for our people. Be with us, minimize the effect of violence upon us, and help us to find a turnaround through your peace and your justice. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Boy, Dr. Roper, thank you as always. What a difference you've been able to make today.
All right. Blessings on you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, a dysfunctional family cannot be fixed by one person alone. It's going to take getting all hands on deck. If you've listened today and you can identify somewhere in your family that needs change, bring it to the family. Talk with them and let us make make a decision together as to the way forward. Look, something as simple as getting everybody to the table. No more eating in the bedroom. No more eating at the couch. Get to a table if you have one, or bring everybody to the couch. Turn the TV off. Start talking. Start praying together. Start doing something together and make that family happening. And one more thing. Don't call your children names. Don't tell them they're no good, like they're no. Don't tell them all the bad things, because during this child month, we're going to rescue the children. We're going to rescue the family. That's my motto for my church. That's my motto for this program. We're going to work together and make the change. I'm Steve Blair. This is The Rock. Thank you to Kathy Gale, our producer. Thank you to In Studio Nadine Blair, the one and only. Thank you for all of you on Facebook and YouTube. Those who've been listening, those who've been a part, those who've called in. You've made this program special. One more thing, my phone number, 876-295-9141. That's 876-295-9141. If you need help, I'll find the help. Maybe I can't be the help, maybe I can, but I'll find the help to make sure your family can be restored. Thank you for joining us. See you next week as we do another program next week on the family right here on Love. God bless.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.